Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Wade and Carter Show, live from the Atzenhofer studio, as we are every single morning. Glad you're here. Glad you're joining us on a sunny and cool Memorial Day weekend beginning.
It's an interesting title, but I like where you were going with that. Yeah. 72 degrees under mostly sunny skies in Victoria, Texas, heading to a high today of 87. There's a chance of rain. What's that number right there?
15%.
Yeah, not much. A little chance of some showers this afternoon. Although it does say that tomorrow there's an 80% chance, 85 on Sunday, 35 on Monday, 45, 60, and then 40 all the way through next Thursday.
Well, today was supposed to be rainy, and it's kind of pushed back to Saturday night. So maybe it'll keep pushing back, and we'll have a nice weekend.
Today is the day that you just simply must make the time to run by Deerland Feed and pick up the 21-7-14 blend and get it down
and
on
some
your yard.
Balon, because the mosquitoes are going to be bad.
Yeah, so just get it down.
Or no, Bifin.
Oh, Bifin too.
Yeah.
They've got a box. It's about $18. It's got 4 ampules in it, and you just cut the top off, put it into your pump-up sprayer, add 1 gallon of water, and you have effective professional
bug
pest
spray
control in a bottle for $4.50. It's a no-brainer. Go by, see Jackie Parsons, and pick it up. I used it the other day. It's odorless. It goes on kind of a little bit milky white, but it dries clear and it doesn't stain your floors.
Pets.
I just take my sprayer. I run it down the side of the refrigerator on both sides. I run it underneath the cabinets, preferably on the floor, not on the wood.
Not on the food.
Not on the. I don't spray it on the apples. But it works great. The key is to get the fertilizer down and let this rain over the next couple of days rain it in.
Well, the nitrogen out of the rain will help too.
There you
Ricky
go.
King, Mark Kurtz, Scott Tomko on the podium this morning. Let's see who else is in. Scott Snow, P. Strauss, Bobby Leister, Stephanie Connie, Justin Glass, Tammy Keeling, good morning. Micah Patton, Lisa Poole, good morning. Marina.
Hi,
Mark
Marina.
Zapata, Rena Scherer. We're huge on the ocean somewhere this morning, according to Rena.
She on a cruise?
Yeah, they're on a cruise. Linda Chris, good morning. So we're going to be joined a little bit later on by Ryan Chismark. He is
very interesting guy.
He is a Texas property tax policy expert. So we're going to talk to him about those sorts of things. Looking forward to that conversation. He's got a newsletter you can subscribe to as well if you're interested. Texas Property Tax Reform, the Chismark paper. And you can go to thechismarkpaper.com and get all of his insight. But we're looking forward to that discussion.
What I like is I'm looking forward to the fact that I don't know what to expect from this gentleman. I know that he is an expert on I just lost wherever that was. It was an article from D Magazine. He's an expert on taxation and the funding of government. And he asked me, are there any specific questions you want me to prepare for? And I said, no, I just want to have a conversation with you as a layperson who admittedly does not have all the answers. So I get the feeling, and we will find out, but I get the feeling that he is a proponent of some type of property tax to fund the government, but that he's about property tax reform. And I don't know if that means getting a hold of the CAD and straightening it out. That's why we're having him on the air.
Yeah.
I can't wait to just have a conversation with the guy.
So it'll be interesting because you and I mean, a week or so ago, figured.
It'll at least be interesting for you and me.
Yeah. And that, usually that's good enough.
That's usually good enough.
Wendy Hughes Garcia, Jr., Andrew Alvarez. Good morning, everybody. We're glad you're all here. Where do we want to start? Another conviction or pleading guilty in the huge fraud out of Minnesota, 60 years in prison for the lady?
I don't know, but Junior Samples with a solid question. He wants proof of life for Calvin. It could be like that. What was that lady's name that
Oh, the
she
one that
disappeared
in Bahamas? Yeah.
We think that gal is hanging out with Nancy Guthrie's
Mom,
or is that
with
Nancy Guthrie?
Yeah, Savannah Guthrie's mom.
Nobody talks about poor Nancy anymore.
Not anymore.
Very interesting.
Where
Where do you stand on this idea of giving reparations to people who pled guilty, who were found guilty of being in the wrong place at the wrong time on January the 6th? I don't, my gut tells me that I don't like the idea of using taxpayer money to give these people some type of economic benefit from being trespassers. I mean, were some of them egregiously over prosecuted in a quest to make Donald Trump look like a attack on democracy?
I think
which
so.
was BS.
I think some of them were, and some were victims of a witch hunt.
So does that make them? I mean, my dad would say, if you weren't there, the problem wouldn't have happened. You had no business being there. So where do you stand on that? Is that AJ in the lobby?
How else are they going to provide anybody any,
I don't, but does the government need to provide anybody anything for that? I mean, I guess what you're saying is, so Donald Trump is keenly aware, just stroll on through, boss. Donald Trump is keenly aware of wrongful prosecution.
Yeah.
So he gets it. He's got a position of empathy for these people. And at the same time, I don't think I owe those people any money out of my pocket for their legal fees. Do you? I don't know.
But I don't know how else you can right a wrong that the government created.
Well, okay. So
Because
if we're going to do that, why don't we give reparations to every black person too? Because their great-great-grandparent was somehow,
Can I get some reparations as well?
Well, you need them. You deserve them.
Mistreatment.
I
don't know. I don't know.
Our state rep has just walked in here
I mean, let's not forget this fund was set up as part of a settlement with him from his lawsuit with the IRS, correct?
Yes. He sued the Treasury in January for $10 billion over the 2019 leak of his tax returns. Now, all he's doing there is suing them over the weaponization of the IRS. He certainly didn't suffer $10 billion worth of damage.
No. And I don't believe they can be audited on any past tax returns either anymore as part of the settlement.
Nice.
Which, okay. I mean, if that's what the government agreed to.
There you go. Let's go to somebody who is never short of an opinion and is so much more often right than wrong. Good morning. We're joined now by Sheriff AJ Louderback.
Heavy Friday right away.
Joined right off the top of the hour here by our state representative. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Good. Did very well. Thanks for asking.
I mean, I know that you are a Donald Trump guy and you seem to understand often with inside information exactly what's going on, but what do you make of? I mean, you're a law enforcement guy. A lot of these folks that were at the Capitol on January 6th were just simply trespassers. I'm not saying they deserve to be locked up for 8 months, but do you as a taxpayer, do you want to fund a fund for them to go, well, I was mistreated by the government. I want $20 million.
No, but we have a civil structure. We've got a legal structure. We've got justice. We've got a number of things that come into play here. I think in January 6th, there was a narrative that was set by the Democrats on insurrection, which I don't know that was, some people did some things that were probably criminal and should have been prosecuted for those. What I don't believe in is that there were some heavy, egregious penalties put out. And I believe that some of those things were out of line with the criminal justice system, that the Democrats were able to use this event on January the 6th very effectively against the right.
Right.
And, those that we had a death there which was very, it had some unusual aspects to it.
But could have easily been prevented if the woman would have not climbed through the window after being told to not climb through the window.
Yeah, absolutely. There was mistakes made. There were a lot of people that were there who did absolutely nothing wrong, and were investigated for it under the auspices that we had an insurrection, which I think was false.
It's never, Trump's never been charged with insurrection. Nobody has. Nobody's been found guilty.
I'm just glad the types of folks involved in this insurrection were not in charge of anything in 1776, or we wouldn't be standing here having this conversation. Because if that's an insurrection, that's the worst one ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. No, but I think it's Trump's statement against the weaponization of the IRS.
Absolutely.
And I think maybe it's a little punitive, but I remember being like shocked that a couple, a husband and wife, were arrested over January 6th, like well over a year after the event. They came and picked them up in Dallas, Texas at their home.
And there were a number of Texans that were their credit cards were, I think Bank of America was the principal party that simply volunteered or gave up the information so they could track people who came and were involved or even attended any way, form, or fashion the January 6th issue. So I think there were a lot of mistakes made. And but under that administration, I mean, it's very easy to see exactly what went on there. It was a lawless administration in so many ways that the chaos that was caused there, and we're still paying for it today.
Apparently, more and more coming to light, exposing the culpability of Barack Obama in the election. So Hillary Clinton creates a fake dossier. It becomes apparent to Barack that it is all false. He suppresses that and then sends Comey and others out to go get more, using that as a premise, go find something that we can use against Donald Trump. And that while as a sitting president, he did this.
Well, justice is sometimes slow, but it's kind of steady. So, the puppeteer behind the scenes on so many of these things, even through the Biden administration, it's always been talked about that, the guy pulling the strings was Obama in the background, which I don't have any problem believing to be absolutely true. So many things that were done during the Obama years and later during the Biden administration were very reminiscent of Barack Obama and what he represented to this nation. And you could just take the Iran, the way he handled Iran, sending pallets of cash,
$650 billion cash.
Now, how do you ascertain that would be a proper role of government to do something like that with a known enemy and a known the actual pioneer of all terrorist operations here abroad, responsible for many thousands of American lives and American damage.
Absolutely.
So it's just these things are reprehensible, and I'm glad they're coming out.
We say it here often: the left will do anything in their quest to either obtain or retain power, and that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
Is power.
Yeah.
And you see this with the redistricting, gerrymandering argument that the left is now promoting that black people aren't able to vote anymore. They're not. Their right to vote's gone. It's Jim Crow. And it's just craziness.
Argument.
Yes, sir. What's going on? I know that people think, well, the House isn't in session. AJ's just playing golf. I know because I stalk you on Facebook and Life 360. I know where you are. You're in the district every day and in Austin for committee meetings and hearings. What's going on in Austin, Texas?
We do attend a large amount of events, which I think is necessary because I've always maintained from day one that I can't represent anyone unless I'm listening and here in the district, and that's first and foremost. But the main thing right now is that the bill packages that are to be presented in January 27, God willing, that we win the election in November, if I'm there in January 27th, well, then we've got to have bill packages ready to go. And so, the past 2 months, our committee meetings have started. We had a committee meeting, criminal jurisprudence, this week. So 2 good topics on there, but it was it's a heavy lift right now as we prepare the bill packages, and there's a number of things that I'm going to be presenting, that are significant.
Yes, sir.
In the criminal justice world, public safety world. There's some other areas that I'm going to dabble into a little bit, but that's the preparation that going into Ledge Council, putting these things in place right now is over the next 2 months is critical.
Well, I know, you say that January 27, I mean, it's literally right around the corner.
Absolutely.
I mean, when you figure that it takes maybe a couple of months to craft a bill and to get it down to where you think you can explain it and get it passed, I mean, you're down to 2 or 3 months. They got to be writing heavily.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, we're only seven months away, roughly.
Yeah, Ledge Council is already busy.
Folks. Yeah, almost 6. We're a week from being 6 months. I don't want to make him sweat this early in the morning. I don't want him worried about it. No, not you. I don't want sweat. AJ. Where AJ, you're right. That's true. AJ doesn't sweat. That's right. That's right.
Him and Chuck Norris. The only
him
two
and
men
Chuck
that never sweat.
Chuck. Yes.
Well, Chuck, what an icon.
Yeah.
Just to clarify some things that I think have been not misrepresented or maybe not omitted from reports on this. The money set aside for this anti-weaponization fund is actually coming from the judgment fund, which the federal government set up in 1956. So the money's already been earmarked by Congress. They're just pulling 1.7, 1.8 billion out of it. So the money's there and is being used in a way. And that judgment fund was to right wrongs that the government did against people. So it's just another version of that.
Yeah.
Fair
and
enough.
It's part of the settlement with the IRS. So
what do you make of, and this is just not a state issue, but a global issue. I think that the Iranian situation is kind of wrapping up. I think the president's going to get some concessions that he wants in short order, or he's going to bomb the heck out of Iran. What do you make of the U.S. just kind of stopping off in Cuba on the way home?
Well, I think that's in the plans. I think that he's on the cleanup tour. I think he's going to starting with Venezuela. The man is saving the Western Hemisphere from all threats and putting us in a position to be successful for decades to come. And it's a phenomenal piece of strategy, phenomenal piece of work, by a man who has the will to do what others won't. And so I think that Cuba should and will fall, come under U.S. control instead of Russian and China. And I believe the Iranian situation, until we get the uranium, until we remove for sure, that I think we're going to continue with this conflict in Iran, and I think it's necessarily so. I pay attention to what people say. I mean, when they chant "Death to America" every day,
they mean it.
I think they do, because they've demonstrated that. It's factual. So these are verified incidents that have gone on and on and on. Most people in the U.S. don't understand. They don't catalog those things. They're busy with life. Some people do. Some people track this thing, and that's what they do for a living. They're professionals that track the chaos, track the terrorism, track the financial plans that they've got. It's a multifaceted attack on the United States and Israel, and I believe that it was necessary to get in there and just quit kicking the can down the road and trying to appease these folks, which there is no appeasing. But removing the nuclear capability is paramount. I don't think if you doubt that the RGC wouldn't pull the trigger on a nuclear weapon in the United States and Israel.
Naivety,
it's
right?
pretty delusional.
Yes, sir.
Qatar got involved now in the negotiations, and I guess there's one of the key points is a 30-day sort of more than a ceasefire, but basically an end to the war in a 30-day negotiation period. From what I read, Axios was reporting this, and apparently that ticked off Bibi Netanyahu because he was trying to urge Trump to continue or to start carpet bombing Iran again, and Trump said, no, we got to do this with diplomacy. But Qatar gets involved, and they seem to have been able to take this further down the road than Pakistan had been able to in the last month. So we'll see what happens. But apparently that did not please Mr. Netanyahu very much.
Well, I would have to side with him in some respects because the delay game is one that if Iran is playing.
You're letting them reload.
Absolutely. And I understand the president knows that. I mean, the Secretary of War knows that. I mean, Pete Hegseth knows exactly what's going on. I mean, this is the intelligence part of what's going on. The tracking of what Iran is doing is well known.
But every one of those countries over there, when Israel got involved and they attacked Iran and all that every one of them publicly condemned Israel for that, and yet every one of them went back to their cabinet meetings and said, "Thank God for Israel."
Absolutely.
Because it needed to happen, and they're all, publicly, the Saudis say war is never the answer, and then they're like, "Thank God we didn't have to do it."
Well, it's always posturing.
Right.
There's always positioning.
That's what makes me think the Cuba situation is going to happen, is that Trump realizes that Russia still has their hands full with Ukraine. They're certainly not going to deploy troops to our hemisphere over here to defend Cuba. I think it's just something Trump will just go in and take it over in a matter of days.
Well, and I think if you look at history, we indicted Noriega, then went into Panama and grabbed him. We indicted Maduro, then went into Venezuela and grabbed him. Now we indict Raul Castro, and he's not here yet. So we're going to have to go into
Like
Cuba.
Maduro.
It's all falling in line.
Well, it's like Trump said. He goes, many former presidents have talked about taking care of Cuba. I guess I'll have to be the one who actually does it.
Yeah. Which is pretty normal.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, the man's literally, saving the Western Hemisphere from all threats.
I agree.
The different, just the enriched minerals that China has had a lock on, stopping all that. So, I mean, it's just, you saw where silver's going up quite a bit. So it is, it's a fantastic thing. It's a historical issue. We live in historical times.
Amazing. Yes, sir. 100%. Well, the world as we know it, when the Middle East shakes out right now, you've got the UAE has left OPEC. That is epic. It's unbelievable that they have left OPEC.
And the fact that nobody's talking about that at all, because
number
now
3 producer of oil in the world is somewhat an ally of the U.S.
Well, 61 years ago, you'd have to understand, why OPEC was even formed, and what that meant, and what oil and energy means to the globe, and so these are global moves that he's made, solidifying the American presence, and so many American strength is on display now every day, and so when it's make America great again, I mean that's what he means, and so. We ought to herald the person, hail the president for doing this,
Amen.
and putting us in this position to control the chaotic world that we live in.
And it's nothing really new. I went back and listened to parts of a speech that he made as he came down the escalator in 2015, and he adamantly said at that time, Iran cannot be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon. They can never have a nuclear weapon. And in his second term, when he doesn't have to worry about getting reelected, he's just going, I'm going to clean this up, clean that up. Maduro's got to go. Let's get the oil back in our hemisphere. I think you're going to see him revisit Greenland too. He's going to say, hey, we need control. We're going to put a base there to protect this side of the globe.
Oh, I think so. I think so. I think
awesome.
all these things are doable. He's on a time frame to get it done, and putting us in a position of strength. And, kind of reminds you of the Reagan years where we were globally strong.
You have Memorial Day events to attend. Do you have anything
We
to share
do.
with
We
folks?
do. We've got a pretty good weekend. I go day by day, and Marcia tells me on the night before, but all the places we're headed. We had a heavy day yesterday. Had a number of events to go to, a number of meetings and things that are going on. But that's just what you sign up for.
There's one I want to talk. Take a second to talk about. The DeWitt County Vietnam Veterans Chapter 1029 is holding their Memorial Day ceremony at the DeWitt County Vietnam Veterans Memorial on Monday morning at 10:30. That's right at the intersection of Highway 72 and Main Street. So if you're in the Cuero area, stop on by and pay tribute to those who paid the ultimate price and made the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms on Memorial Day. That's Monday morning, 10:30 in Cuero. So
Yes.
what do you, how much are you hearing about data centers in this region? You think that's going to be the hot button topic in the legislative session, or do you think that some of these things might be sorted out before then?
The 90th session will it'll be called a water session. Is probably a primary concern. There's a tremendous amount of I literally I can't go hardly anywhere without a person who I don't know will walk up and discuss their concern about water. And many I know, many I don't know. And from HEB to Walmart to Sam's to Target, it's just it's a constant tug on the shoulder about the concern for water.
You want to talk about?
We're visiting with Texas 30 Representative AJ Louderback for those on radio and can't see the
welcome
banner.
Magic 95.9 listeners.
Ryan Schismark's in the green room, ready to join us as well.
What do you make of I follow Zillow. Zillow's a real estate app that show you I can go in and put filters in and say, it's got to have a pool. It's got to be waterfront, whatever. And I am seeing a huge increase of properties in the Corpus Christi area going up for sale. And I know you talk often with our Congressman, Michael Cloud. What do you make of this concept, this kind of an end around to solve the water problem, that it's labeling this a matter of national security, which I think it is?
Well, there's several things about Corpus that are interesting for the Gulf Coast area. And I spent about an hour and a half with Todd Hunter yesterday. Representative Hunter, Chairman Hunter, is a longtime 22-year veteran of the Texas House. With all respect to you, I think Todd Hunter might be the most powerful man in the Texas House. Number 7 on seniority, very well respected on what he does and the way he goes about things. But the water issue in Corpus has been a classic case of governmental incompetence. And so the city council there and the powers that be, have mishandled a number of things. And of course, with the rain, everything is kind of lessened. But I think everyone understands that that water resources in the state water plan is up, and there'll be some major changes in the state water plan, so we can assure that no county is drained of water. So this is a fundamental part of government. So we've got to make sure that's going to happen. So I suspect there will be a number of changes in the state water plan.
Well, and I think the danger for Corpus Christi residents is, even after one day of rain, the government down there, we're able to push back our just emergency plans for 2 months. That's the wrong message to send. Now people, the
desalination issue there in Nueces County, which is just huge. But I do believe that there's ongoing negotiations with the White House. So the desalination I think is imperative. I think it's going to come. And Texas is going to be one of the recipients. Arizona is another that definitely needs desalination, because they probably even are in a worse shape of all the states, probably in the worst shape.
It's interesting.
Good consumption of water.
It's interesting to see how they water in Arizona. They come by and open up spigots and flood fields. They have berms set up, and then the water just sits there till it's gone. And then every 3 or 4 weeks, they come and do it again. Interesting. I had no
heavy,
idea.
heavy arsenic, heavy arsenic there.
Knowing that everything in Texas ends up being at the state level just so political and vindictive and sometimes petty, this certainly is a nonpartisan issue. Water, we've all got to have it just as human beings, no matter how you vote. Do you anticipate vast cooperation from the Democrats in the House on this issue, or do you think it's going to be a matter of who's going to get the credit and who's going to get the funding, and are we going to have a DEI, organization to solve the water problem?
Well, there were 3,600 water projects totaling about 174 billion.
Wow.
So it can't be done in one session. Got to prioritize, got to use common sense, put in the safeguards necessary, put the rails in place for that no county can be drained of water. And I think this is a fundamental part. I think this is common sense. I think that you can use basic logic on how you go about doing that.
Fantastic.
And so that when you walk into your house, water comes out of your faucet. There could be areas in the state which we have water-rich areas, and we have areas in the state that are not water-rich. And so the capability for a water-rich district or county to sell water to an area that doesn't have it, to achieve a balance. And I think those are all doable things that certainly the Texas legislature can address.
Well, we know, admittedly, if it comes down to common sense solutions, we know you'll be involved. And I encourage you, embolden you to be the vocal, outspoken state rep that you've already shown yourself to be. I hope that you will get right in their face and go, what are you talking about? Why are we doing it? I love it. I attend the sessions when AJ is there, and I've seen him just get this exasperated look on his face. Some guys, does the gentleman yield? Yes. For what purpose? And they're babbling back and forth. And usually it involves a Gene Wu. And all of a sudden, AJ will just get up and walk over to the snack room. And I know he's not eating in there, but he just saunters out of the House chamber. And it's a glorious thing to see.
There are some ridiculous moments.
Old school Texas politics.
Yeah.
You have anything else you want to share?
Well, I think y'all got a gentleman coming on with some property tax relief. I think there are some definite major issues on that. We can reserve that for another time. Abbott paying M&O and
we're going to ask him
some
about
indebtedness.
that,
So
things.
that could be a major. That could put money back in Texas pockets. So this is another good subject. That will be a major issue. Water, taxes, energy,
Data centers.
Data centers, how we manage electricity. So we've got a number of major threats here for the state to look at.
When you get some of your bills authored, we'd love for you to come back and just
sure.
spend, obviously way before next January,
Yeah.
but love for you to come back and exercise your, you're not welcome, you're invited, your constant invitation to come in and visit with our folks. And I just continue to be the bold Christian leader that you've shown yourself to be in the Texas House.
Well, thank you.
And we'll continue to support you.
Absolutely. Appreciate y'all.
We'll
We appreciate you.
Appreciate that.
We're
We'll
going to take a
break.
break, and then we'll visit with Ryan Chismark. So thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, brother. It's always great to be visited by our leadership, and there's none more accessible than AJ Louderback. He's got an office at Heritage Mark. You can call him. I've seen him give complete strangers his cell phone number. They were usually tall and blonde, but that's not the point. The chopping block this weekend.
Get in and get your Memorial Day weekend meats.
Absolutely.
Had the Butler's Boudin the other day. Phenomenal.
They are just doing a fantastic job. The chopping block, I had a chance to visit with Rachel Turner the other day and congratulate her on her son
She's
winning.
so beaming with pride.
They won.
They get a nice
brisket.
$3,000 check for that.
That's awesome. He's now
Awesome.
a barbecue pro.
Yeah, he's a world champion.
Chestnut Furniture inviting you to get in and see why you just always do better at Chestnut. Chestnut and Love, make your house a home. Bobby Leon and his family will be there this Memorial Day, no doubt, Cody. No doubt having some type of Memorial Day sale. It's just part of it. That's the way they all operate. Chestnut Furniture, really a Victoria blue blood business. Palace Bingo, I'm sure Bingo will be going on Saturday. tonight, Saturday. Get to Palace Bingo.
Late night one tonight with bigger prizes. I think they only play 8 games in the late night one, but the prizes are bigger, and it's usually pretty popular.
Support 7 local charities. Get in and see Palace Bingo, where friends meet friends. USA Concrete Coatings and USA Foundation Repair. You're going to
578
see
home.
this weather is going to wreak havoc on your home's foundation.
Yep.
It goes from, it's like a sponge, and it goes from being totally dried and now water underneath it. Be aware if you start seeing cracks, call USA Foundation Repair at 578 home. So we're going to be joined now. If everything goes like my fingers are crossed, I'll admit it. If things go as they should,
I'm adding him to the stage now. There's Ryan Chismark, and I'm going to bring up his little banner so we can see exactly who we're dealing with. And
That's the other one.
his microphone is off, and we're going to welcome him to the show. Good morning, Ryan. How are you?
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Hey,
We're
great.
very well, thank you.
Welcome to the Wade and Carter Show. Glad you could make time to join us this morning.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Happy to be here.
We're really excited to visit with you because I've already prepped our folks by saying, I know you're involved in property tax reform, and that you're I listened to you on Slater's show with Mike Slater and on Breitbart in the morning, and you guys are personal friends. Is that fair to say?
Yes, we're personal friends.
I just am fascinated with him and his witness and the kind of guy he is.
Great guy, high character. Yeah.
I aspire to be viewed by my public the way I feel his public views him. He's a fantastic pundit, very thoughtful gentleman, and he spoke so highly of you that independently, Ash and I reached out to you via LinkedIn. And I think it says a lot about you that you said, oh, these little guys down in Victoria, Texas, I'll go talk to them. It means the world. Tell folks what you do, how you got involved, and I'm sure that will begin a conversation.
Sure. So Ryan Chismark is my name, and I started in commercial real estate. I grew up in upstate New York. That's where I met Mike Slater. Made my way down to Texas by way of working in county government initially, structuring abatements and incentives, understanding how the system worked. And then I worked for a big brokerage house, Cushman and Wakefield, to start my career in Dallas and understanding the real estate market. And from there, I shifted into the property tax profession and have a great understanding of how the system in Texas works. Of late, I started what's called the Chismark paper, which was a result of the 5-point plan that the governor put out. It was a response to that. It had case studies, and that morphed into a website, which is now an online repository of information where the public can go and just say, hey, how does the property tax system work? I get this bill, but how did we get here? What does it mean? And just breaking things down very simply, because that place didn't exist.
When you look at the options for funding government, and for this discussion, let's set aside that the government budget is bloated, that there's tons and tons of waste, that if they let me and you walk through the halls of state government for 2 days, we could cut several $1 billion out of the state's budget. But setting that aside, the funding for that machine is done primarily through property taxes.
Yes.
In the big picture, is that the best way to do it? And if so, and if not, tell folks what you think about that from your experience.
I really love this question because we're so focused on property tax in Texas because it's really all we have. You know, these other states have to complain and debate about income tax and corporate tax. And so of the taxes we have available, property taxes take the heat because that's all we have. The states that don't have income tax, specifically, they're in the Sun Belt. The smile is what we call it in commercial real estate. They're on fire. If you look at population growth, that's where all the growth is. And it's by no surprise to any of us that there's no state income tax in those states. That's where people are going. So that makes sense. Then once you're in that state, you need to pay for things. You don't have a state income tax. You want a competitive sales tax to keep the economy ripping. So you have to rely more heavily on property tax. That's what we're feeling right now. And the question is, what is the appropriate allocation from one individual to the next, one homeowner, one commercial owner versus residential? and how do we make sure that the balance is appropriate? Right now, it seems that homeowners are feeling the pain more than anyone, and there are a number of reasons for that. Of all the taxes that exist, it's the most fair. It's backed by real estate and real estate values. It's not subjective or penal. If you had a higher sales tax, it really hurts rural communities. We've seen the data as a percentage of income. Income in rural communities is just lower than urban centers. So if you were to increase sales tax, they feel the weight of that more. Whereas a property tax, not as much, assuming the system is structured appropriately.
So that is your consulting firm. We have a group here called Junic. They're great folks. A friend of ours, Kinsey McGrew, will go in and argue your case against the CAD for the increase in your property taxes. And then, of course, she gets a percentage of the savings. Is that something you've been accustomed to doing? Is that what your firm did? Or
yes, yeah. In my day-to-day, that's my profession, is property tax consulting and representing primarily commercial owners in reducing their assessments and saving property taxes. And that's really evolved into being a voice on how the system works.
Is there a misperception, or is it pretty accurate that the CAD is or manipulates a lot of the data and makes up for when, the government sets a cap on taxes or percentage increases and things like that? Is that a fair, or is that just people complaining because they don't quite understand the system?
Well, there's certainly some merit to the fact that appraisals are always accurate, and it's whether or not that's the problem is something entirely different. So I try to break things down very simply for people because that's how I understand them. So assessment times rate equals tax liability. I call it ART. And if you work it backwards, at the end of the day, regardless of what your assessment is, you're solving to a budget. So we forget oftentimes that we've got to fund the community. So if that budget goes up, it doesn't really matter so much what your assessment does. If that budget goes up, it's going to find a way to make it to you. We have a proportional system in Texas. So if the budgets continue to grow and they grow faster than your share, meaning your assessed value, then you're going to have a larger tax burden, whether or not your assessment goes up. And if we were to cap assessments, I hear a lot of people say, hey, we'll just cap my appraisals going up too much. You know what happens when you cap the assessment is your tax rate goes up because the budget went up. So your taxes went up. So you didn't do anything. You just shifted it to rate and you don't have any relief. So the thing that I keep focusing on is we got to be careful not to cap one thing because it just shifts a burden elsewhere. And that's an unintended consequence.
I point out often here that the government is going to get their pound of flesh. Do you want them to raise the rate? Do you want to raise the value on your home? I do find it somewhat un-American, which makes it certainly un-Texan, that you get charged on perceived gains in your real estate value that you've never received money for. Does that make sense? I mean, like you buy a house for $200,000 and the next year they rated it $350,000. And for just a moment, you're proud of yourself because you made a good investment, but then your taxes go up. And over time, certainly if you were to own the home through the whole term of your loan, the next thing you know, all the money that you actually gained in real estate value has really been paid to the state in taxes.
You bring up a really good point because we focus again on assessments. So let's play it out. The way the system is supposed to work is you have stewards of spending. So your budgets stay pretty consistent. Maybe they grow with inflation, but it's pretty consistent. So as your assessment goes up, the system is literally designed for the rate to drop and your tax liability to stay generally pretty similar. What we've seen is a run up in values. The budgets have continued to grow. Rates haven't been adjusted downward in every instance or not enough. So now homeowners are bearing the burden. So the system in that sense is hurting them. And it's not just about the assessed value. Again, I'm going to say a million times, we're coming back to the budget, because if you're assessed at $100 million, but your budget is close to nothing, your tax bill is $25. You don't care what your assessment was. You care what you're paying. And that's a function of the budget.
That's right. We complain about rates, but we pay with dollars.
Yeah, and I mean the state's had what 25 billion in surpluses each of the last two bienniums, and none of that seems to have ever gone back to Texans. It seems to get spent. We had a comment from one of our listeners, Karen Murray. She says basically because of taxes, you never own your home, so you could pay it off, but you're all, and down here, a lot of old families that had places in Port O'Connor. Once Port O'Connor got busy popular along the coast, they were basically assessed out of their homes because they could no longer afford the taxes down there. What are some of the answers, or what are some of the reforms? I know Governor Abbott supposedly has got a plan for this legislative session. I haven't seen much on it because he always says he has a plan and never seems to fix it. But is there a real fix for Texans when it comes to property taxes?
Let me address a few things there because you bring up points that a lot of listeners and people that have come to me have asked that. I never own my home because I have to pay taxes. If I pay my house off and the government can take it, I never really own it. And I say the most unpopular thing that I think is true, which is you own your home, but you rent the community. And that's difficult for some people, especially some of the folks you hear very quickly, well, I'm on a fixed income. And so I'm quick to point out the trade-offs. So you see 4 primary trade-offs. I'm going to name them for your audience. Shift from older residents to younger residents. Shift in taxes from residential to commercial. Shift from property tax to a sales tax, or shift to paying taxes now versus later. None of those things say reduction, right? None of those are saying savings. Those are all shifts. So you got to be careful to listen for 2 things. Are they saying relief? Relief means shifting to somebody else and somebody else is paying for it, or we're paying for it later. Reduction means you're actually saving tax dollars. Now you're asking the question, and I'm going to pivot into this. The plan that's gotten not nearly enough attention is the Lieutenant Governor plan, which is seemingly head and shoulders above the governor's plan. Lieutenant Governor's plan is called double nickel. His proposal is to take the senior exemption from 65 years old down to 55. That's about half of Texans. So what that would do is it freezes your school district taxes. And then you have a homestead exemption that he's proposing that's increased for all Texans from 140,000 to 180,000 exempt from taxation. And then for seniors, it would be 200,000 up to 240,000, the most recent proposal. Those are good proposals of the options on the table instead of the governor's plan, which is a complete overhaul. I call it bulldozing the ranch to fix the fence post, which we don't want to do. It's important to note that we have the most robust economy in the U.S., 14 years running. So to say that we're going to take our number one revenue source and just get rid of it or throw away school taxes is a very heavy-handed solution to a very solvable problem, which is why I think cooler heads prevail here and we stay the course with Lieutenant Governor's double nickel. What I would like to see as a tweak to that, however, is something for millennials like myself, because we've been completely left out of the conversation. So I'd love to see his plan, the Lieutenant Governor's plan, paired with a first-time home buyer tax credit that phases into taxation. So let me give you an example of what that might look like. I go to buy my first home in Texas. I have 100% exemption of my school M&O rate in year 1. I have 50% exemption in year 2. And then I fully pay my taxes in year 3. So I'm phasing into taxation as the 55 or 65 and over phase out of taxation. It's this natural passing of the baton. If we employ the Lieutenant Governor's plan and we have a nod to the first-time home buyers, there's this passing of the generational baton, and it's not a permanent exemption for the young folks. It's just helping them get into the homes. Because as much as the older folks are on a fixed income, I hear that they have income. They have a nest egg. They have equity. If you're me and you're in your 40s or your late 30s or even your 20s, you're almost all in on a down payment on a house. You qualified on 2 incomes and hope to God that you don't lose a job, and you have 0 equity built in. That's tremendous risk and a huge barrier to entry. And if you believe, like I do, that owning a home is core to a family and core to the community, we got to think about some of the younger folks as well.
But those of us that think that owning a home is core to the community, that number is dwindling. So many young people now, for the barriers and the problems that you mentioned, are choosing just to rent. I see that. We hear people all the time romanticize about the idea of, well, let's just do away with property taxes and go to a consumption tax. Explain to our audience. I already know what he's going to say about this because I can read his mind.
Well, and you and I did some quick math on this a couple of weeks back.
People say like this, well, hey man, like we pay 8.25% sales tax. I mean, let's just move it to 15 and do away with property taxes. And people aren't mentally prepared for the fact that, like you said, ART, at some point, the rate's going to have to go up or something's going to, because the government needs what, 25%? If you did a sales tax, what do you think the magic number would be, Masaminos? That's for, plus.
I love this debate because on its face, it sounds good. It's, well, let's just move to a consumption-based tax. So I don't have to feel this every year at my home level. And then you start to run the math. So the study was run 2 years ago and last session. And if we were to eliminate all property taxes from the system in Texas, the sales tax would have to be 25%. And that's at the current spending levels, which would almost immediately drop because most people wouldn't buy things here anymore. If it was just a school district portion, I haven't seen the math definitively. I've seen some sound bites on math that I think is way off, but somewhere in the mid-teens, upper teens. So still penal. For the audience, for their benefit, the highest level of sales tax in the US is around 10%. So we would be 50% above the national average. Our competitive advantage would completely wane. You want to see corporate headquarters stop coming to Texas. That's the best way to do it.
It seems to me that it would be somewhat punitive to the lower income folks as well, because like, let's just say that we all have to have a gallon of milk, some dry cleaning, and some basic groceries. Well, whether you make $1 billion a year or $30,000 a year, that gallon of milk still costs $3. So when you start taxing things that the baseline necessities that everybody has, taxes become more of a percentage of your income to the lower income folks.
Absolutely.
I don't think it's fair, but I also don't think that just because you make more money than me, you should pay $5 for a gallon of milk and I only pay $3. I'm not for that either. So
yeah,
property tax,
that's a good perspective. Actually, yeah, it's really, it feels more like an income tax at that point because the percentage of your income going to the cost of goods is disproportionate to someone else who might make more money. And I agree with that. And I think that's why we can't go that route. And you bring up a good point, which touches on inflation. So let's say that the government in Texas, let's pick the city of Dallas, for example. Let's say that they didn't spend one extra dollar on their budget for the last 5 years. Inflation nationwide, depending on when you want to start COVID, but let's say since COVID started, is somewhere between 25 to 30% in 5 years. 25 to 30% more expensive. So a $100 item 5 years ago costs $130 today. So even if the government was being a steward of spending and being as efficient as possible and not taking on any additional obligations, their costs went up 30%. So we're very quick to say waste and spending and bloating and all that stuff. Inflation has not fully made its way through the system since COVID, and we're feeling that now. I mean, imagine the cost of filling up a school bus right now, guys. That's not getting any cheaper, and that's not frivolous. That's just getting the kids to school. So we need to be a little bit mindful of the fact that it's not this big bad government doing these nasty things, but there is some inflation running through the system. Now, that said, there's certainly some waste and there's opportunity there, but let's keep that in mind as well.
You heard, I think you might have heard Representative Lauterbach talk a little bit about M&O relief for schools with Governor Abbott's plan next legislative session. Do you know much about that and what he's talking about?
I do. So one of the proposals the governor has is to eliminate school tax. Now, the most misunderstood concept in public finance, and I want everybody to really pay attention to this, I've been harping on this. If you remove a tax, that does not remove the cost. The tax is the revenue line item. So if we're talking about $25 billion that's not going to be paid locally in property taxes for schools, the cost to operate the schools is still $25 billion. So then the natural next question is, Well, how do we fund it? And we can say surplus dollars, but last session, that would have been the whole surplus. And by the way, this is a forward commitment into the future. You never pay school taxes, so you'd have to have a $25 billion budget every year, or a sales tax, or deplete your rainy day fund. But God forbid it rains, right?
Yeah, and
In
I think
2011, we had that problem and we had to cut budgets. So that is an idealistic approach, and certainly something that would help you win an election, but it doesn't paper. And think about this, and I brought this up on Breitbart on Slater's show. Taxation and representation go hand in hand. If you are foregoing your payment of taxes, what is the need for representation locally at the school district level? What's the role of a superintendent, a principal, a PTA? What does that local control look like? Because you relinquish control, now it goes to the state. I'm of the belief that, and I think many of your audience would believe, that local communities know what's best for local communities. If we're running all schools in the state of Texas out of Austin, I don't love that as a solution either. And I'm not saying it's not well intentioned, but it's not well thought out.
And I agree. I had this discussion the other day with somebody. I said, because they mentioned that exactly. Well, we'll just let the state, relieve our property taxes. I said, but then you're going to relinquish control, because they're not just going to give you property tax relief without taking more control of schools than they already have. And do you want that? And the answer from the other person was no.
But Ryan, at the same time, I'm of the opinion, like, always take the money. Get the money, figure it out. But
we're visiting with Ryan Chismark, Texas property tax policy expert, is how I've got him framed on the screen. And
you can find him on Facebook. You can find him on the internet at the Chismark Paper. Is that right? Correct?
That's right. Chismarkpaper.com.
I just subscribed to that newsletter, so I'm looking forward to reading that. Appreciate it. What are the which of those policies or plans has a better chance of actually being passed in 2027, the 90th session? The governors or lieutenant governors?
Certainly the lieutenant governors, and I think it's head and shoulders above. I mean, if we want to point out the governor's plan, and again, well intentioned, this isn't a bash. I think we're all trying to solve this problem, and we've just seen, especially myself working nationally, I've seen all 5 of those points play out in case studies, and they failed. The best demonstration, and we point to this a lot, but if you cap values, that's what they did in California, Prop 13. They didn't solve affordability. People are getting taxed out of their homes, or they're not able to get into homes, and they have the worst budget problem in the country, and yet they have every single lever of taxation. They still can't figure it out. So we don't want to go there. Shifting to a 5-year reassessment cycle sounds good until year 5 comes. And then year 5, your value's through the roof. So you just delayed payment, right? So it sounds good, doesn't work. We've seen that in, if you look at my paper, North Carolina tried an 8-year reassessment cycle, and it killed their growth. Corporate relocations weren't happening, municipal bond downgrades. You had a lot of challenges associated with that. Schools were underfunded. It's really hard to plan for public policy in a 5-year cycle. You only know the value of your tax base every 5 years. So you just had a great guest on, Representative Louderback, talking about water infrastructure and planning. How in the world can you do long-term water infrastructure planning if you only know what the value of your tax base is every 5 years? That's not efficient. Right. That's not a good solution. So by stark contrast, you look at the lieutenant governor's plan, the average house in Texas would have the vast majority of their value exempt under his plan. And he would be able to address the freezing of school district values school district taxes for half of the state if he were to lower the senior exemption down to 55. I think that's a step in the right direction of what Texans are asking for. I certainly don't want the elimination of property tax. I hear that on the far right. I think we need to be careful. The same folks that were saying that defund the police is a terrible thing are saying that they don't want to pay property taxes that fund the police. So let's think through what we're really asking for here. I understand we want to be stewards of spending, but let's just play out the implication of where that money goes. We still need community.
We're going to lose we're going to lose our Magic 95 radio audience, and that's okay. But we had a great question I want to throw to you. We'll give a bonus minute to
for those on Magic, come on over to Facebook or
Yeah.
YouTube, and you can continue to listen to Ryan Chismark and this conversation, because I think this is an important one. We can keep going for a while longer unless you got somewhere to be, Ryan.
Christy says, hey, as a commercial property tax consultant, what are your feelings on extended tax abatements of 10 plus years for large corporations to relocate to a community?
Depends on the value that they're bringing to offset that cost. So if you look at some of these corporate relocations, and I think it's a good one, are we throwing too much money at these companies that would have moved here anyway? But there are economic feasibility analyses that are provider economic impact studies that say if ABC company were to move to Texas, they would generate X in sales tax and ancillary benefits, job creation, so on and so forth. And those benefits have to outweigh the cost of what's being put on the table as an outlay to incentivize them or abate taxes for them to be induced to come here. So generally speaking, I'm a big fan of public-private partnership and incentivizing companies to come here. I'd be a big fan of incentivizing developers, residential developers, to free up some of their inventory so we can get some of these prices to come down for homes so people can come into their first time homes.
Fantastic. We've been visiting with Ryan Chismark. The Chismark paper is available at chismarkpaper.com. Sir, you absolutely exceeded expectation. And I'm hopeful that we can call you again and maybe just kind of make you our tax expert. Is that possible?
I'm extremely flattered.
I think he said no. The microphone got garbled. They always tell you, don't ask a girl on a second date on the first date. I mean, it's awkward. No, but you absolutely are an expert. Well, we really appreciate your time, and we have a large regional listening base that certainly you'll see your subscription numbers go up because they're a very educated group, and they will go and look at chismarkpaper.com. So on behalf of Ash, thank you a ton, and
enjoy your Memorial Day weekend.
Enjoy the Memorial Day weekend. I know you're going to be reflective of the price that was paid, the taxation, if you will, of our society by war.
Yes,
but thank you very much for being a part of the program, and I'll follow up with you offline.
Thank y'all. Really appreciate your time.
Ryan,
Weekend.
Fantastic. What a great visit with a very humble and knowledgeable young man. I mean, absolutely. I like the organic nature of it, right? We did not give him any predetermined questions and he just said, okay, well, just bring it, fantastic. Folks, it is the top of the hour. It is time to leave you for this weekend. I do hope that you'll take some time and reflect on the greatness of. I heard a guy speak this morning and said that at the current rate, and say 350 million people, there's like 1.2 in our military. Or 1.4. It's 0.4% of our population is the United States military, 0.4%. And that 80% of those people, 80% of them have a direct family member who also served. There is an entire subsection of our society that was born to the trade. They are the United States military. Too many have paid the ultimate price for your freedom. And I hope that you will reflect this weekend while you're cooking burgers and eating hot dogs and enjoying the summer sun. Be aware that people died to let you do that.
All I ask is that you take at least some time during this weekend and thank those who paid the ultimate sacrifice.
That's right. Folks, God bless you. We love you and appreciate you tuning in every week.
We're going to be here Monday, that said, coming since Monday is Memorial
It's a holiday. Let's take Monday off and share it with y'all. I will be downtown at, I don't know what time it starts, Cody, 9:00, I think, the Memorial Day. There's always a presentation down at the town square.
7:05 that evening at Parkway Church is the Field of Honor. service
that's
as well.
always a
So,
wonderful deal. So
Multiple opportunities on Memorial Day to remember what it's all about.
bye, folks, and have a great weekend. We love you.
Bye, folks.